Thank you, Mr. Wells. I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Nantiello, and for your statement, and I recognize myself now for 5 minutes of questioning. I see that both of you did not mention some of the topics that we consider highly important vis-a-vis the relationship with Colombia, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Wells. You know, Colombia supplies 97% of cocaine to the United States, and the question is, why did we stop monitoring the coca crops in Colombia?
Thank you for the question. As I understand it, the decision not to have a coca estimate this year, cocaine estimate, was a decision made a couple of years ago before the election of Gustavo Petro as president. We are the recipient agency of that.
It was made by whom?
I believe it was made in the year 2020, and it is by other agencies. I would have to refer you to the ONDCP.
Do you think that is that a good idea? I mean, maybe someone else negotiated it, but the Biden administration could say, that's not a really very good idea, and not really knowing how many new crops of coca are being planted in Colombia. What do you think about it?
Don't
you think it's outrageous?
There are various,
that we don't know?
There are various counts that are taken. So one is by that is overseen by the ONDCP. There is another, which is the Office of National Drug Control Policy. There's also one by the UN Office of Drug.
Yeah, but the UN doesn't. Don't you
crime.
think that the United Nations will will have the resources and the technology that we have in our intelligence agencies to really know? I mean, you personally, what do you think about that? You being the Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of Western Hemisphere, you know, you're in charge of Colombia. What do you think about the fact that the United States will not know how many more coca crops the Colombians are going to be harvesting? What do you think about that?
So as I said, we have access to other types of measurement. We have the UN ODC count, which—
The UN is not the United States.
It is not, but they have been parallel counts for many years, so we know the differences. The two teams discuss, we understand their methodologies, and there isn't a resolution yet as to what the next steps are on the new
You understand that the
coca
United States
estimate.
has left the game. I mean, we left the game and we're leaving it up to somebody else.
Let me explain how also we're engaged, though, is at the tactical level and operational level in Colombia, we assist the Colombian military and the police in doing their own tactical level counts. So they're looking for coca all the time. They use a system called SEMA. And as someone who has been been in the field implementing these programs, that's a very good tool for us to use. It helps us find the coca that we're going after.
You know that it sends a very bad message to the United States. It's just not looking anymore. Now, let me move to another question. You know that President Petro is trying to negotiate peace or something with el Clan del Golfo. Clan del Golfo, as I said, my opening statement, isn't two ignominious activities, drug trafficking and human trafficking. So my question is, what is there to negotiate? From the United States point of view, what is there to negotiate with el Clan del Golfo? El Clan del Golfo. I mean, simple. Give it to me simple. What is there to negotiate with this, one of the most important criminal organizations in the world?
So we share your skepticism toward any dialogue with the Clan del Golfo. I can tell you what the intent is to not only negotiate with the ELN, but also with other politically motivated armed groups, but as well the Colombian government, the Petro government, has conceived of negotiating with criminal groups.
But what has the State Department said to Petro, since the Biden administration is close to the Petro administration? Have you expressed your concerns to the president?
I'm expressing them now that we are concerned about anything that results in impunity for narco traffickers, and we would be very skeptical of any processes that give impunity to anyone trafficking drugs, any organizations.
Good. You're sending a message to President Petro as we speak, so maybe he'll change his mind. Now, what about the statement, and neither one of you said anything on your opening statements about what I'm going to pronounce right now. You know that President Petro said in Belgium that he sees no difference between the United States and Russia. I mean, that's a pretty unfortunate statement at this hour when we have the war with Ukraine. Do you agree with me?
I agree that the war against Ukraine is unjust and brutal, and
sure. What do you think about Petro saying that he doesn't know the difference between us and them? What do you think about that?
What I can say is that 3 times the government of Colombia has supported votes against Russia's invasion of Ukraine at the UN. We are not going to agree with every tweet that Gustavo Petro does, and in this case, we don't agree with that. But we've been pretty consistent, and the Colombians have been supportive in international fora with regard to
So he says one thing, but he does another. Well, that's good. Words are not, sometimes are not like actions, but it's all right. So besides the difference between the United States and Russia, President Petro also said that oil is more dangerous than cocaine. Oil, more dangerous than cocaine. So what do you think about that? What does the State Department think about that?
Well, with regard to coca, I mean, I think I said we are concerned about the rising levels of coca and cocaine production in Colombia. With regard to his positions on oil, I can talk about that. You know, he said when he was elected that he was going to stop all further exploration or any new contracts in oil production. That's been his practice so far. We haven't seen him actually cancel any existing ones. The United States companies are fairly well invested in that area. He has expressed a desire to move and transition toward renewable energy, and that's something that we support. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for U.S. companies to profit in that space. But I agree, there is an uncertainty when it comes to the hydrocarbons industry about what's next.
So basically what you're telling me is that he may be saying something but doing something different because the State Department is sending the message that we don't agree.
I'm saying he's doing exactly what he said he would do, is not to have any new oil contracts, and we haven't seen that
Yeah,
yet.
but the fact that he's comparing oil to cocaine and saying that cocaine is better than oil, for me, I think it's outrageous as well. And I'm just going to ask one more question, so I don't want to abuse my time, but your colleague, Todd Robinson, said that Colombia is a net exporter of security. All right, but we just learned that he wants to negotiate with the ALN and with the Clan del Golfo. So how can we interpret a net exporter of security?
I believe what the reference was to that the Colombians provide security assistance to some of their neighbors, north, especially up in Central America. They've done so for decades. We've partnered with them through Southcom and through Assistant Secretary Robinson's bureau, INL. And so they have provided some assistance. It's been useful in the past. I don't know about the reference to
But do you consider that
the
Colombia,
ELN.
since you study it every single day, that Colombia at this hour under Petro is a net exporter of security? Being an ally of Venezuela, that Venezuela has the largest refugee migration on earth.
What I can say about that is that they have a relationship with Venezuela. We don't tell countries with whom they can have relations. He decided to do that when he came into office. I can say he definitely shares the goal of having a democratic solution in Venezuela. He hosted a conference in April with some 20 countries, and there those countries affirmed the need for Venezuela to return to the path of democracy. And affirm that the process that the international
Sorry, I'm
community
interrupting. I
is
have
undertaking.
my time is expired. I now recognize Ranking Member